So we're going to start in a moment. Just a bit of housekeeping for those of you that are joining us. We are recording this webinar. So a recording will be made available if you wish to have that, and also for some people who subscribe to it but obviously couldn't make it today. So we will be doing that throughout. And then the other bit of housekeeping that I just wanted to let you know is that if you've got any burning questions, that you use the Q&A function. I will be keeping an eye on the Q&A, and we'll be pausing throughout. But generally, the way we've structured these 45 minutes is Fiona will be shortly presenting, and her presentation is going to be about half an hour. And then we've kept the last 10-15 minutes for questions at the end. But if anything I see from the Q&A, you've got any burning questions, we'll pause where I might just touch base with Fiona to see them. So, right, without further ado, I'm just going to tell you a bit about me, and then I'm going to hand over and tell you a bit about Fiona. I'm Ashley Lodge. I look after the mental health and wellbeing list here at Pearson, and it's been my huge pleasure to work with Fiona on the Weaving Wellbeing program. For those of you who don't know Fiona, she's from Dublin in Ireland. She's an international author, speaker, facilitator, teacher trainer, specifically in the area of wellbeing and positive psychology in education. She spent many years as a primary school teacher in Ireland and is passionate about putting wellbeing at the heart of school life. She holds an MSc in applied positive psychology, the science of wellbeing, from the University of East Anglia. I knew it said the University of East Anglia, University of East London. And in fact, it's a course that even I looked to do at one point, and I might do in future after all the brilliant work that Fiona's gone on to do, having done it. She is the co-author of Weaving Wellbeing, our program for children aged 7 to 12, and is now used internationally. So we are the first people to publish this program in the UK, and a version is also available in Australia. And Fiona is also the author of Wired for Wellbeing, the new Key Stage 3 program. And her early years program, Welcome to Wellbeing, has just been released in Ireland. So a massive thank you to you, Fiona, for joining us today. Absolute pleasure working with you. And now over to you to tell us about Weaving Wellbeing and positive psychology.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Ashley. It's just such a pleasure for me to have this opportunity today. And I'd like to start by thanking Ashley, Rebecca and Jerry there for the opportunity to deliver this webinar today, and to Ashley for all the work. We have worked closely together over the last couple of years, I think, Ashley, isn't it? To get it into the UK with Pearson. So really, really pleased. I'm still pinching myself that we're at this stage. So really, it's such a great pleasure for me to talk about it today. So thanks so much to everybody in Pearson Primary for this opportunity. I'm delighted because I love talking about it, as you'll see. I love talking about the program and positive psychology and wellbeing. They really are my passions. So it's just great now to have a new set of people to talk to outside Ireland. As you know, I do feel that wellbeing in schools, I've always been very, very interested in wellbeing in schools right from the start of my career, which I'll talk about, but it's more of a priority now than ever, I think, because of the challenges that children are facing with COVID. So I think, you know, as Ashley said there, you know, really my passion is about putting it at the heart of our classrooms and schools. And I think a lot of teachers do feel that. And if you're on this webinar today, you're probably one of those people who agree with me on that. But the question is how, you know, how do we do it? And that's what I always felt as a teacher. I want to do it, but how do I do it? Because we're so overloaded. And I know in the UK, I think you're even more overloaded than we are here in Ireland in the education system. So that's why I was very pleased, as we'll talk about the field of positive psychology, an evidence-based field, and to have a program and to develop resources for teachers. I think, as I said, we know that I'm going to show you the why, and then the how is very much the program. So I want to give you an overview of the program. So as Ashley said, you know, pop onto the chat there at any time, pop onto the questions and answers as I talk. My opening quote, it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken adults. I love that quote. And I suppose it underpins my work. My whole ethos is the idea that, you know, I was a classroom teacher. I say I am because it's very hard. I think once a teacher, always a teacher. And we have an incredible opportunity, I think you'll probably agree, as teachers, as educators, whatever field of education you're in, to nurture children's well-being, nurture their development, make sure we give them a sense of belief in themselves, a sense of self-efficacy, so that they can reach their potential. And we can do that, you know, and it's one of the most rewarding things, I think, of teaching is to be able to do that. And again, so very much, that is very much my own passion. So I love that quote. So in the session, I'll introduce myself. I know Ashley has done that, but just a brief introduction. I'll give you a background to the development of the programme, a very brief piece about what wellbeing in schools is, because I think, you know, there's a lot of talk about wellbeing and it's a word being used a lot at the moment. And I think it's really important we pin down, what is that? What are we talking about? Why is it so important? And of course, how? And of course, the how is the programme, which is the useful part. To have that there. I will give you a very brief overview of positive psychology, because I think it is important, because the whole program is based on positive psychology. When I discovered it about 10 years ago, actually, I think I remember the moment I discovered positive psychology, everything changed for me after that. So I do want to give you an overview of it, because the whole program is based on it, and the program just makes so much more sense when you see it is based on this evidence-based field. And then I'll do an overview of the program and any questions. I hope that makes sense. I know some people are on the chat there already. Great, Ashley is checking that there. So a little bit about myself. I'm a former primary school teacher, now full-time author, trainer and facilitator. So I do a lot of training and talks in schools now in the area of wellbeing and positive psychology. So over 30 years, I was teaching for over 30 years when I left. A very hard decision to make, but I suppose I had been working part-time, doing the programs, doing writing, starting to do training. So it came to that situation where I had to make the decision to go full-time into it after 30 years, just at the start of last year. So over those 30 years, I have taught all levels, including special needs. I was in special needs when I left. Which is such a rewarding role to be in, because of course I was working with children who need this most, children who have you know, anxiety disorders or mental health difficulties or emotional issues. So you know, very, very close to my heart, I suppose, that work. And I was always interested in wellbeing. When I started teaching, wellbeing wasn't a word. We have the SPHE curriculum in Ireland, and I know it's PSHE in the UK, but it wasn't even on the curriculum. You know, it's hard to believe in the 80s, there wasn't even such a thing as that curriculum. But I think I knew intuitively, like a lot of teachers do, that it really is the foundation. We have to get the wellbeing right, because it is the foundation. And I saw the research afterwards, which was great, showing that when we get that right, and when we take the time to nurture it, everything else falls into place for children, their academic results included. So it's a win-win situation. So I was really, really thrilled to come across the field of positive psychology. Positive psychology is the science of well-being. I didn't know there was a science of well-being. A lot of people still, I think, aren't aware. It's quite a new science. It's about a little bit more than 20 years old. So that led me to do a master's in applied positive psychology, and I would recommend it, Ashley. I know you were talking about it. It's a brilliant course, and I did it part-time with the University of East London while teaching full-time, a few very, very hectic years. But I think, you know, I think that really led me to be able to write the program at a very high level, because I started to incorporate those concepts into my classroom while I was teaching, because I realized, you know, the children, I need to know this, and the children also need to know, and need to get this in early. And of course there wasn't. I did look for resources on positive psychology, and I couldn't find a well-structured program, a comprehensive program. So I started to write it, and that is the start of the Weaving Wellbeing program. And I do say, I know transformative is a big word, and I don't use it lightly, because I think I had 20 years of teaching before I discovered positive psychology, and 10 years after. And I just feel they're just completely different experiences, not just for the students I taught, but for me, myself personally, because I started to enjoy my teaching so much more. I started to relax a little bit more, slow down, started to incorporate these topics, and transformative for me and for the children. So I got such great positive feedback from introducing some of the little skills and strategies from children, from their parents, from other teachers in the school, that I realized, you know, I must start formalizing these lessons. And that's where really it did start. I started to collaborate then with my co-author, Mick Rock, who's an acquaintance of mine, and he also had the same master's and was very interested in developing a program. So we started to work together. We had a pilot stage, because it was very important for us to know that, you know, it wasn't just me in my classroom doing these things, that it was transferable. So we had a very large pilot stage here in Ireland over a couple of years, and we got very positive feedback from teachers, from parents, and from children. Key findings, and and one of the most important questions I asked was, is it teacher friendly? Because as a teacher myself, I knew that if it wasn't teacher friendly, it didn't really matter how good it was for the kids, because, you know, we're overloaded as teachers. We've enough to be doing. So it had to be teacher friendly. And that's one of the parts of the program, is that there are PowerPoints for each lesson, which took a lot of time, but I think it was worth it because it allowed it to be teacher friendly. And of course, then positive impact on children too. So we launched it. It's still quite new, you know, it's 2017. We launched it here in Ireland in my local education centre, and now it's in around 70% of schools in Ireland. And as Ashley said, launched in Australia and now the UK. So I am pinching myself, thinking of myself just in my classroom teaching these lessons. It did very much grow organically, and that's, I suppose, a great sign. And there's the Australian programme. It has been translated into Irish for the all Irish schools here, Fiona Forman. And there's the Pearson version. So I love seeing all the different versions. I actually love the covers of the Pearson. They're very colourful, very bright. So it's just such a thrill, as I said, to see the different versions now. So after piloting, obviously, then we had some initial independent research, and we have 7 independent studies now over that period of time. We will have a summary. We do need more research. It's still a very young program. We will need a lot more independent research. We will need, you know, long scale studies, follow-up studies. But so far, the research that we've had is very, very positive, and it will be available on the website shortly. So those studies, they were a variety of research design through different academic institutions, and all of the qualitative and the majority of the quantitative results were very, very positive. So in terms of the qualitative, just to give you a brief summary, all of the data was very positive, including things like, and of course this is what the programme is aiming to do, to increase levels of positivity, fulfilment, self-efficacy, resilience skills, self-belief, motivation, perseverance, ability to deal with failure, high levels of engagement, enjoyment and positivity. And one that I really enjoyed watching, which was the increased understanding of the language of wellbeing, increased comprehension of wellbeing, because of course, if we want to improve wellbeing, we need children to know, what are we actually talking about? What is the language? And you'll see that all the way through the programme. So it's great to see research showing that children, having done the programme, did actually have a really good understanding and able to understand what wellbeing is and how to improve it. Quantitative, the majority of them, 4 out of 6, showed positive impact in a variety of domains, including decreased levels of anxiety, which is absolutely brilliant to see. That's on quantitative scales, and increased levels of self-efficacy. Both of them tend to go together, because self-efficacy, of course, your belief in your own abilities, and you know, your belief in your own ability to deal with anxiety is a key factor in then decreased levels of it. So really, really great to see those findings there. And we do need more, but as a starting point, it's really, really positive, and really links very much into the anecdotal reports that we'd be getting from schools as to how it's going. So any questions so far? I hope all that is making sense. Just to zoom out for a moment, when we're talking about wellbeing, what are we talking about? I just want to give you this particular definition that you're probably aware of from the World Health Organization. Wellbeing is present when a person realizes their potential, is resilient in dealing with the normal stresses of their life, takes care of their physical well-being, and has a sense of purpose and belonging to the wider community. It is a fluid way of being and needs nurturing through life. So that's a very well-known one, used in a lot of schools as well. And we very much based the Weaving Wellbeing programme on that particular definition, because it's quite clear. It has the different dimensions of well-being in there. I love the idea that the sense of belonging there, the sense of purpose is very important. And of course, fluid way of being, very important, isn't it? And the fact that it needs nurturing. So that is kind of our starting point for, the definition of well-being. This is what we're trying, this is what we want for our students, isn't it? This is what we want for ourselves. We want them to realise, and not just realise, but reach their potential. And be resilience being a big part of well-being. So to pin it down in that concrete way is very, very important. And as I mentioned, as a starting point, when I was starting to introduce the idea of well-being to my own students, I wanted to make sure they knew what it was. So we used that definition, that World Health Organization definition, and we, adapted it for this Weaving Wellbeing definition. Wellbeing means feeling good and strong in our minds and bodies, having energy, getting along with and helping others, knowing our strengths and feeling proud because we are doing our best. It means we can cope with the little problems and disappointments of life, It means enjoying life, being grateful for what we have, and accepting ourselves just as we are. So you'll see that all the way through the program. I just want to point out it is very much based on that World Health Organization. We didn't pluck it from thin air, but we did add other elements of positive psychology in there, including gratitude and self-acceptance. So that is one of the very first lessons in the Year 2 program. And the language, and there's a lot in it. It's not that at the end of Year 2 they'll have that full understanding. That's repeated all the way through the program. And as I said, research there showing that children, that particular research was done on 11-year-old children who had done the program, and they had a very, very clear understanding of what wellbeing meant compared to children who hadn't done the program. So it's lovely to see that. So there it is, there in the first page. And breaking it down then into very concrete skills. This is me having fun, this is me helping someone. So giving children that opportunity to start thinking about it, to make them, really co-creators of their own well-being, and active participants in creating their own well-being is a really important part of it. Why? I think I said I knew intuitively that well-being was really important, but when I came across this research, it was like, yes, this is what I've kind of always known intuitively. Well-being in childhood is the strongest childhood predictor of a successful and satisfying life in adulthood, with the child's intellectual development being the weakest predictor. I just love to just pause there for a moment to allow that to sink in, because I do feel, I know I'm coming from the Irish system, which has changed a lot over my 30 years. I sometimes feel that's getting lost. I don't know if you feel the same. Academics I know are important, but if you've taught for long enough, which I have, you know yourself that a child with narrow academic success is not going to go on to live a happy, successful life unless they are resilient, number one, unless they have social skills, unless they have an understanding of their emotions and their thoughts, and an understanding of their mental health. So again, that's what the research shows. These are the life skills. So I was thrilled to see that, because I intuitively knew it. I was intuitively spending the time doing it, and very much the program is very much based on that idea. But there it is. I don't know if anyone's surprised at that, the child's intellectual development being the weakest, and I love sharing that with parents too, parents who are pushing their children academically. That's another story. But just to know that research is there, I think it's really, really powerful. I think we have to hold on to it. Again, if you're the type of teacher who intuitively has an understanding and wants to promote well-being, and now you know why. You might be just ahead of the curve. I sometimes feel some of us are ahead of the curve on that, and eventually the system might catch up with us and start prioritizing well-being a little bit more. It is happening here slowly. So how? Now we know it's really, really important. We know what it is. Research shows that a two-part approach is really important. Whole school culture, I'm sure you're aware that everything starts with the culture, not just in schools, but well-being is very much founded in positive relationships, nurture, care. I think it's very much about sending that message to children: you matter, you matter, you belong, and it's done through all the invisible, informal work. So that's really where well-being is built. That's what the research shows, and we do have a whole school guide to show how, if you are going to use the program throughout the school, how you can make the most of it and make sure that you're making sure that you're using those informal ways to embed the program, I suppose, across your whole school. There's ideas there for before you start the program, while you're doing the program, and for afterwards. They're all just suggestions, but very much based on the research that, it's not just the one lesson a week that's going to make the difference, that it's very much founded on those positive and that whole school culture. And suggestion box is one of those things, and that I just got a photo there of a school who's doing Weaving Wellbeing, because one of the suggestions is to have a suggestion box, a wellbeing suggestion box, for before you start the program, to just get that conversation going and ask children and parents and teachers, what could we be doing better? What does wellbeing mean? What should we be doing? Not that you can use it all, but just to have it there. And then on top of that, research shows that we do actually need to teach children the skills. So the whole school culture is very much the basis of it, but it's not enough. We do need to teach them the skills, and that's where the program comes in. So the program in and of itself is not enough. I'm sure you know that it's very much based on relationships and the ethos. So embedding them into the day-to-day life, because that's where the self-efficacy comes in. Any questions on that so far? That sounds okay. And of course, when we talk about the skills, that's where positive psychology fits in, because positive psychology is skills-based. It's the science of well-being, as I mentioned. It's about 20 years old. I do need to mention that, you know, the word positive psychology sometimes leads people to think, oh, it's about being positive all the time. Being positive is really important, being as positive as we can, as often as we can. But it also means dealing constructively with our negative emotions, and we will see so-called negative emotions. They have an important role to play in our well-being. So it's not about being happy all the time. It's about being as happy as we can, as often as we can. Resilience is a big part of it. And positive psychology interventions, the field is made up of positive psychology interventions. To me, it's like a treasure trove. When I discovered it, I was like, wow, there's so much evidence out here of these small, and a lot of them are daily evidence-based skills and habits that, you know, when we do them, they can build our well-being and resilience. So as I said, as I was learning about them, it was very much, you know, how can we bring this into the school system? What's the correct, you know, year level to do it? How can we adapt it for children? So that's how the program came about, very much based on these universal habits and skills, PPIs, positive psychology interventions. Positive psychology, again, identifies a four-step process, which I really like, to nurturing wellbeing in schools. It's known as positive education. And step one is learn it. So even something like this, where you're here for half an hour learning a little bit about it. Also, we have the teacher resource books as part of our program, where you can, if you like, you can read through them. You can see the research. You can find out more about positive psychology. Step two is live it. And I think that's really important to point out, that we are the first role models for our students, aren't we? So, you know, and luckily enough, what's come back from a lot of the pilots, or from a lot of the teachers who are still in contact with me, who are doing the program, is that, you know, as they teach the program, they use the interventions themselves, you know, for their own well-being. So, you know, that's a nice opportunity. So I would say take that, you know, take that opportunity. And of course, you know, it becomes more holistic then as well, and teach it. And the final step, embed it. So when I was talking about that whole school approach, you know, as I said, the lessons are, there's 10 lessons per year level. I will go into it, but really that it shouldn't be just lessons once a week or whatever, that it becomes eventually over time, and we do see that in schools, it becomes embedded as part of the culture, and that's where the magic can happen. I'm just going to show you Seligman's PERMA, because it underpins the whole program. So Martin Seligman is the founder of positive psychology, and in 2011 he came up with the PERMA theory, which was probably the best known theory of well-being. And really what he saw was, from looking at all the research, he saw that people with high levels of well-being had these 5 things in common. They were doing these 5 things. They had high levels of positive emotion. So when we talk about positivity, that's where it's coming from. 10 positive emotions identified in positive psychology. You'll see them all the way through the program. They're really, really powerful. Relationships, you probably guessed. The presence of positive relationships is one of the #1 indicators of well-being and resilience. Sorry, I skipped the E there. The E is engagement. So engagement with life, it's the idea of living your best life. What does that mean? That sense of fulfillment. It comes from your character strengths. So another fascinating part of positive psychology, which you'll see in the program, is the 24 character strengths of positive psychology. And again, when I started to be aware of this language, I'll show you the 24 character strengths shortly. You know, I certainly wasn't aware of it. My students weren't aware of it, and yet it's so powerful in terms of having a strengths-based language to describe ourselves. So identifying and using our character strengths, again, an evidence-based positive psychology intervention. So you'll see that in the program. Stands for meaning, having a sense of meaning and purpose, which usually means contributing to others or helping others. And then accomplishment, just the idea that, you know, personal growth, reaching our potential. So again, when I came across PERMA, I still get excited, because I think, wow, here's the roadmap. Here's the roadmap for how we, you know, build a program. So you'll see that we use that as a very concrete roadmap to build Weaving Wellbeing, to have elements of PERMA all the way through. And that comes from Seligman's book, Flourish. There's the character strengths. I won't go into the detail. I love them, and they were the first. I wanted them in very, very early in the program. That's why they're in year 2, our second class. There's the 24 strengths. When you start teaching children that language, it really is incredible, because children, you know, I was in special needs for many years. Children can get such a deficit-based view of themselves very early, and the strengths really are a great antidote to that. So when you start teaching children, what we're valuing here is your bravery, your perseverance, your humor, your creativity. You'll see that academic is not there at all. It's not about being clever. Love of learning is there as a strength. So as I said, that is an evidence-based positive psychology intervention. So you'll see them all the way through the program. And again, to get them in, to make them child-centered, I came up with the idea of having them as our inner treasure, our treasure coins. So we have our inner strengths inside us. That idea, everything you need is inside you. What does that mean? It means that we have our character strengths, and there they are. So really, I mean, it's hard for me to choose one of my favorite levels of the program, but character strengths is like, I don't know, I think it's my second favorite one, but so important to teach them. So that is the very first level. That's the entry level. And you will see that some of those terms, you know, it's the vocabulary is quite challenging in some ways. So just to be aware, it's not that at the end of year 2 you would expect them to understand every single character strength. The idea is they get a flavour of their strengths and that they identify their top 5. They only need to identify their top 5. That's what the evidence shows. So to mention again, any questions there? Hope that's all making sense. Okay, what is the Weaving Wellbeing Programme? So it's a PSHE program underpinned, as I said, by positive psychology. It is multi-year, year 2 to 6, 10 lessons per year level. There's a teacher guide with, as I said, background information. There's lesson plans, PowerPoints, supplementary material and posters. There's a digital page, which I'll just show you a picture of now shortly. A pupil book, including a parent guide. So again, research showing that I'm sure you're aware that you know, parental involvement makes a big difference in the success of these programs. So we do have quite an extensive parent guide with ideas for parents.
Oh, here for a moment there, Fiona.
Sorry, Ashley. What did you say there?
Sorry, I don't know whether that was my connection or yours. I don't know. I think that might have been my connection that went down there.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. I thought it was yours, but that's okay. Right. Sorry.
Okay. So mine is still okay. Good. Everybody okay there with that? Okay. So parent guide, incremental, but each level is also standalone. That was kind of hard, you know, to make sure that it was fine here. Thanks for that, Lara. So, and there you can see the books. That's just an example of the digital page. So you can pop on and you'll see that everything is there. You can have the implementation guide. There's the whole school guide. You can print it out. There's an introductory letter that if you're doing it as a whole school, you can give that letter to all the parents so that the parents know, yeah, this is what's happening in the school this year. There's a self-assessment checklist that you can use for assessing. Children can do that themselves over the course of the program. Then there's the PowerPoints. There's a parent handout, which is specific to each lesson then. Then there's all the supplementary worksheets, and then there's the posters. So they're all available there on the digital page just for convenience. And as I mentioned, you know, Weaving Wellbeing, coming from positive psychology, it is underpinned by the concept that a state of wellbeing is not simply the absence of the negative, but the presence of the positive. So positive psychology there. And it is designed to give children that opportunity to weave positivity and wellbeing into their daily lives. So we're trying to embed it, we're trying to make it very concrete. There is the actual framework of the program, and just to show you, I mentioned PERMA, so just to show you there that, you know, really it sits very much on top of PERMA, so you can kind of, I think it's reassuring when people know this is where it's coming from. It's coming from positive psychology. You'll see positive emotions there. The third, the year 3 engagement for PERMA is the character strengths, which is year 2, and so on. And of course, resilience we did pull out as a specific topic for the 4th class level. So there you go. There's each level has a particular theme from PERMA. Year 2 is character strengths. Year 3, positive emotions. Year 4, tools of resilience. And I have to say that is my favorite. I suppose I had year 4, 4th class, 3 years in a row recently before I went into special needs. So really, each year I did it, we just got more out of it. And even giving children that term resilience, so important. Year 5, positive relationships, and year 6, empowering beliefs. So again, self-efficacy beliefs there. So there they all are. Just to show you a little bit inside the teacher manuals, the teacher resource books. So you'll see the curricula and learning outcomes are there, done out for you there in terms of the 4 different areas. And then we have the lesson plans. So the lesson plan has the core themes, and then also the objectives, cross-curricular links. So it is hopefully very straightforward. Then you'll see the PowerPoints. There's pictures of the PowerPoints so you can see what's coming up. and they are there. Just to show you the core concepts going all the way through, as I mentioned, language of wellbeing introduced there in year 2. This is from the Irish book here, and it repeated all the way up. And also at the back of the book, we also have images of the previous levels. So, you know, if you're doing it year on year, just so that it's not lost, the children can talk about it, they can refer to it, because the images and the visual reminders are a big part of the programme. We did do our best to make it very visually appealing, so to make sure we still have that all the way up. So just to talk about the themes, year 2, as I said, character strengths are, we talked about them as our inner treasure. So there they are. A lot of language development in that as well, as you'll see. And it's not imperative that children, as I said, understand them all. They just need to have a flavour of them so that they can identify their top 5. I won't go into all the research on character strengths, but decreased stress, more self-confidence, enhanced academic achievement. So much research. So again, I had never heard of the character strengths, as I said, so it was one of the first things I started to introduce into my own classroom. And when I say it was transformative, when children started to understand and use their character strengths, really, you can understand the sense of confidence that they're going to get out of that. And there's the very last, one of the last pages in the year 2, where they identify that it's a really lovely lesson actually, where they identify their top 5 strengths in consultation with their parents or their family. And then they come back in and talk. So again, isn't it interesting? So here's a year 2 child who identifies herself as having zest, humility, creativity, teamwork, optimism, showing the importance of actually teaching them all that vocabulary, because you just don't know. Maybe there is a child there who will identify themselves as having humility and optimism, you know, and if we don't give them those words, you know, we need to give them that full range. So really, really nice to see that. And they can do so much with that, character self-portraits, and just really, really positive language to be introducing to the children. Year 3, as I mentioned, positive emotions. The theme there is positive emotion quotient, so that they're identified with, they identify different activities that help them feel more positive, including gratitude, random acts of kindness, flow is there. And again, you know, a little bit of research, the presence of frequent positive emotions is likely to be a stronger predictor of overall well-being and resilience in young people than the experience of stressors. So powerful. There's so much that we can't control. I know that from my many years of teaching. It's heartbreaking sometimes when you see a child going through a very stressful situation or difficult home background, but just to be aware when we can help children to enhance those positive emotions, that is actually going to predict how they're going to be able to cope if they have enough positivity to buffer them. And again, I wasn't aware of that. I really wasn't. And when I was aware of it, it changed my teaching overnight, really, in terms of bringing that positivity in and then writing that program. Rainbow Moments, I'll just show you. Rainbow Moments is one of it's adapted from Three Good Things. Three Good Things is a positive psychology intervention by Seligman, where if you just write down 3 small positive events of the last 24 hours, it's evidence-based that if you do it for at least a week, it starts to enhance levels of positivity and well-being. So it's I suppose one of the core lessons in year 3, and how simple they are. I saw a rainbow on the way to school. I was chatting to Ella Marie. Ella Marie gave me a piggyback. It'd be great to go back to those days where those simple things. But again, that's really what it's about. The little things aren't little. And again, it's just getting back to that and realizing how important, and do talk to the children very much about training our minds. You know, we need to train our minds our minds are very good already at noticing negative events. We have to train them to notice the positives. Year 4, my favorite one, tools of resilience. And there are the 6 tools. And they're all evidence-based tools. So I suppose I really enjoyed, you know, reading about, you know, distraction, which you mightn't realize is an actual evidence-based strategy for resilience, and, you know, adapting it as the lucky dip of distraction, and seeing children then using it, and seeing children. And again, we see the research showing that tools of resilience successful in decreasing levels of anxiety, because what's it doing? It's giving children actual tools to deal with their mental health difficulties or their anxieties. So having done that, and again, having done it in special needs with children of different ages, I think, you know, it is one of my favorites. just to show you, jigsaw perspective is one of those. So how to introduce perspective, the idea of, you know, there's so many positive things in our lives, but when we have a challenge or a difficulty, sometimes we, you know, forget, and that becomes a big part, where it's really, we should remember it's only one part of our lives. So just to have that visual reminder, just to show you that, you know, if children have a small worry or a small challenge, that they might be able to zoom out and remember, and again, evidence-based, that, you know, if we can teach children this skill, it can really, really help them. Year 5 is positive relationships. Again, really important, I suppose, that age-wise, it's really good for at this stage to get children to start to realise what they can do themselves to enhance positive relationships. And again, the skills are there, and they spell the word. The theme is spelling the word relating. So there's respect, empathy, look for win-wins. I won't go into them all, but, you know, just so that children can remember, these are the skills that I need to nurture and play an active role in developing positive relationships in my own life. Empowering beliefs. I'm going over time here, I think, Ashley. I am nearly finished. And the idea that our beliefs are like our batteries. So they're invisible, but we need to make sure we understand, because they're what give us power and energy. So again, helpful self-talk, really important there. Recognizing thinking traps. We introduce children there to catastrophization. Great one. I think we're all very guilty of that ourselves, just to have that word. And mind reading, you know, that we're assuming things. So, you know, children of that age starting to, you know, understand how their mind works. So that is a very quick overview of the program. Very hard to not leave anything out. My final quote, tying back in with, I suppose, that opening quote about, you know, building strong children. I'm not afraid of storms, from learning how to sail my ship. Another one of my favorite quotes, because that's what we're trying to do in the program. We're trying to equip children with the skills to nurture their own well-being and to be aware of what it is. So yeah, I hope that was a good overview, and thanks for your time and attention. Anybody got any questions there? I do have a slide coming up with more information, how to get more information, but in the meantime, I will hand back to Ashley if there are any questions there.
Thank you so much, Fiona, for that. I think it's really, really informative, and I love all the work of Martin Seligman and positive psychology. I think, as you know me, Fiona, I lead on the mindfulness program for Pearson, and there's so much, you know, there's so much, if it were on a Venn diagram, there's so much that kind of leads from mindfulness into positive psychology and vice versa, and emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And I think, you know, having these programs that are so well rooted, like Weaving Wellbeing, that's so well rooted in all of that theory and practice that we know works, that is efficacious, I think is absolutely brilliant. Just a couple of questions. Someone's asked about the slides. I've said they'll be available as a PDF afterwards. If people want, Fiona, are you okay to go on to the next slide just to show if people are interested? If people are interested in the program, you can find out more on the pearsonschools.co.uk/WW page, or more generally about the content that we've got at Pearson. And someone else asked around year 1, and I don't know whether you want to just explain, Fiona, that I know that the way you organise the year groups in Ireland is slightly different from how we organise them here in the UK, especially in England, in that I think your schooling, what we would call Key Stage 1, probably starts more towards year 2, doesn't it?
I think
Which
so.
is why you've got the reception and year 1 programme that you've just published in Ireland. I don't know if you want to say something about that. Obviously, that's something that we may well look to publish in future, but that was the only other question I had come up.
Yeah, I do. As I said, over the last year being off, I was very keen to write that junior end of the program. So that just literally launched here 2 weeks ago. So again, that's available here now at the moment, but very similar, you know, very similar themes.
That's going to be a watch this space, isn't it? And then someone's equally asked about Key Stage 3. You've published Wired for Wellbeing in Ireland, haven't you? So again, we'll be looking at that with interest, and we will be, you know, watching that space to see Key Stage 3 opportunities. So watch this space is the answer for that one, Lara. So thank you for that question. That may well be coming at some point in the not too distant future.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
Any other? Have the same language, I think, used right the way through, you know, so that's why I am keen to have a comprehensive program for children all the way through. So that is the plan. So I'm getting there slowly but surely. So
And Caroline's got a question here. Being mindful that the program is still very new, are you aware of any research indicating the long-term benefits of the program? That is, do the benefits stick?
Yeah, well, I mentioned there the seven studies. Because the program is so new, it's only literally, is it 4 years old now? We don't have a long-term program, but we are we are hoping now, as the program becomes more well known, that that it will happen over time. So yeah, hopefully that
it's
will.
been interesting. Some of even when you were talking about those very simple techniques, and I know this one from, obviously I run the wellbeing program within Pearson, and I know just simply how we all have an inherent negativity bias because it's part of our survival mechanism.
Yes, yes.
And just doing that simple technique of writing down 3 positive things or 3 things you want to give yourself a pat on the back for every day helps rewire ourselves, helps rewire the brain to be more positive, more resilient. I think that's equally as important to say. Like it was very useful, your definition of positive psychology, that sometimes people think it's about being positive all the time, and it's not. It's about how we approach and engage with what goes on in the world in a way that still allows us to be okay even when we encounter difficulty, like we all have very much over the last year or so.
And that's resilience, isn't it? And giving children that language. But in terms of the research, I don't think we have a cohort of children that have done it as yet from year 2 to year 6, because it's not out that long. But I'm hoping that that's where, some college, some institution at some point will take it on and study it all the way through. But we are still, as I said, such a new program. But all the results so far, it's so incredibly positive. And I think the great thing is that, in terms of, sticking over the long term, the fact that they are going to be doing it year on year, hopefully, and that it is incremental, that's certainly the possibility is there for that. We've done our best to try and make sure that will happen, But
brilliant.
Yeah. So
there's one last question.
Yep.
One last question is coming from Lara. Any more experience that you could share with us about using with older children with SEMH? That is later key stage 2 and key stage 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have used it, and that's why I think it's the same with Pearson. Actually, is it that we don't have the year level written on the pupil book?
We deliberately only put that on the back of the teacher guide and not on the pupil book for that reason, Fiona.
For that very reason, because I was in special needs when I was writing the program, and I was very much aware that you might want to use, particularly, say, tools of resilience right up there, with 11, 12-year-olds if they haven't done it before. Character strengths as well. Character strengths, it's not that you come to a stage where it's too late to do character strengths, So I have used it all the way up in special needs, and it's great to be able to pick a particular program that might suit a particular child.
We wanted to make it as inclusive as possible, didn't we? And that's why we didn't put the actual specific year groups on the pupil books for that reason, Lara. So anyway, thank you so much. Look, we're up to time now, but we got through it all, Fiona. Well done. You got through it all, and we answered the questions too. So absolutely brilliant. And thank you again, Fiona, so much for coming along, and also for being very inspirational in terms of, using all your classroom experience, bringing that brilliantly together with that wonderful course you did, and using all of Martin Seligman's work, which I'm a massive fan of too. And to see that that's having such a positive impact in schools in Ireland, and now going to be hopefully in the UK too. So an absolute massive thank you from the team here at Pearson to you, Fiona, for being such a brilliant advocate, for helping all those kids and teachers out there. I think the other thing is to say is, by teaching this, at the same time you can inculcate all of that brilliant stuff around positive psychology and good mental health and well-being too, which is the added benefit. And as we all know, teaching is not exactly a stress-free career. So hopefully there's lots of benefit for teachers too. So massive thank you, Fiona, again, to Jerry and Rebecca who set this up, and also to all of you for having joined us today with this sense of openness and curiosity and wanting to find out more. So a big thank you to you, and Jerry and Rebecca will sort out getting out the PDF, the slide deck to you at some point in the not too distant future. So big thank you.
Ashley, and again, can't thank you enough. It was so brilliant working with you to bring it to fruition. Thank you so much. I know we share the same passion for wellbeing in schools, so best of luck with your new venture. And
thank you very much.
And
Wonderful.
Thanks a million.
Okay, everyone, thank you so much. I think Jerry's probably going to close this down ever so shortly, and then I think a recording will be made available. And again, either Jerry or Rebecca will sort you out for that. So a big thank you, and goodbye from me in London and from Fiona over in Dublin.
Thanks a million. Thanks, Ashley.
Cheers, guys. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye, everybody.